You asked, so we answered.
That's right. You all write into permylastemail@morningbrew.com all the time. We love it, and we respond to every listener email.
So today, our producers compiled a few questions that are relevant to everyone.
And we're going to answer them live on this episode. Let's get into it.
Kyle, you know that I've been a bit of a curmudgeon about using AI.
Yeah, I'm aware, judging by the side eye you give me every time I bring it up.
But honestly, I'm starting to worry that I've avoided it for so long that I'm getting left behind.
You're not alone. A lot of people feel like they've missed their shot with AI or other tech, but it's never too late. It's about taking that first step.
Okay, but where do I even start?
You start by making it part of your routine. Udemy makes it simple to build practical AI skills one step at a time, learning how to apply them to the work you already do. I actually just took the AI for Business Leaders course, and it gave me so many practical ways to start using AI right away.
See, that's exactly what I need.
Then check out udemy.com/personal-plan. That's udemy.com/personal-plan and use code PMLE14 for a free 14-day trial of Personal Plan, their annual learning subscription on us at checkout. That's udemy.com/personal-plan and code PMLE for your free trial. Kayla, let's get right into it. Question number 1. I would love some advice on how to navigate conflicting communication styles and expectations in the workplace. I may like my job just fine, and my bosses or colleagues are great people, but sometimes I find myself just not clicking with them despite being a proactive communicator. Some tips or advice on how to get on the same page or work past differences in communication styles would be fantastic. Thank you, Megan, for the thoughtful question. Kayla, help Megan out here.
This is so interesting of a question because I think it's two different problems here, right? The first problem is that they're not clicking. And the second problem is that their communication styles are different. And I think those
and
are...
Maybe that is one problem and two different ways of it coming.
What?
That sounds like one problem to me.
It's so interesting because that sounds like two different problems. I would tackle those two things very differently.
All right, just edit me out.
No.
Yeah.
So there's two different problems here. I think it's the communication styles are different, which is a completely addressable option or problem. Like 100% we got this. And then there's the not clicking, which is like maybe you guys have different personalities and there's something that's like not gelling. You're not feeling friendly with that person. And both things can exaggerate the other, right? Like I can feel worse about not clicking when I feel like our communication styles aren't gelling. But I think the easiest thing to do is to understand what is your colleague or boss's communication style. Identify that. That could be, for example, very direct. That could be they much prefer text communication over, in-person communication or video communication. Identifying that and then making the effort to find or to meet them where they are. I think, especially if you feel like you're not gelling, that's the best thing you can do. For example, I'm somebody that I think it's so annoying when you get like hey, quick question. And then they don't say anything. Like, hello, yeah, what's the question? Like, tell me, I'm getting anxious here.
Yeah. Or,
versus,
hey, can I ask you a question?
Like, yeah, you can ask me a question.
Yeah.
Would you like to ask me another? So that I find very annoying. But for me, what's better is like, let's just swing by my desk and let's just like hammer this out. Mm-hmm. If somebody felt like I wasn't communicating well with them and they really wanted to make that first, like reach out the olive branch, they should swing by my desk and have a conversation with me.
Yeah.
And then hopefully from there, once that relationship starts to strengthen, they'll do the same for you as well. Now, the not gelling, the not clicking, that's a harder problem to solve. What do you think?
I agree with your advice. I think it's great advice. On the not clicking part, I do think if you solve the communication problem, you're more likely to click. Mm-hmm. And I think just in general, like I believe in like contact theory, like the more times you're with people, working on stuff together, communicating clearly, most people will end up liking each other. So fix the communication. I do think that clicking then will come into effect. If it doesn't, like, yeah, they're your colleagues. You don't need to be best friends with them. My only other addition to the advice you've doled out is I do think that our default is to articulate things in a way that resonate with us. And so you do have to get very clear about not just communication styles, but like how your boss and your colleagues are convinced of things. You might be very analytical and you need to see the numbers. They might be very big picture. How does this fit into our vision? Mm-hmm. And you need to massage it like that. And when we go to convince someone else, we use the thing that convinced us as default. That isn't necessarily the thing that will convince them. So get really, really good at that. The other thing you have to be kind of cautious about is the best way to understand someone's communication style is for them to tell you or for them to give you feedback on why your things like aren't resonating with them. And I think sometimes it can be tough to give off the perception to others that you are welcoming that feedback. So a great first step might just be going to that person and saying, hey, I want to make sure that what I'm creating for you is landing in the right way. And in past roles, I've seen where communication style is really important in that. Like, how do you like to be communicated with? And what are you looking for when you're making a decision? Just make the implicit explicit. And I think that will go a long way.
Yeah, I like that. And I think if you're, a manager in that situation, creating kind of like an about me or how to work best with me.
Yes.
Like, I think it was Claire Hughes Johnson.
Claire Hughes Johnson, former COO
of Stripe. Yeah, she created this basically like this about me, how to work with me PDF.
Yep.
That she would send out to everyone when they first started. That I think is a really good resource for everyone to kind of have in the bank. If I'm running into questions or I'm running into conflict potentially, I don't know how to work with you, I can just use that, refer back to that, and that's a really nice way to make the implicit explicit.
Yeah, it's a great piece of advice, and maybe you just have like a meta meeting about communication styles after you've created that. Get all on the same page, and then things will start clicking from there. Megan, great question, and let us know if that advice worked out for you.
Should we go to the next?
Let's do it.
Hey Kyle and Kayla, I absolutely love per my last email. So I'm hoping you can help me with something I've been struggling with. So I work as an event and social media marketing specialist at a local car dealership here. And I've been with the company for less than 2 years, but lately my weekly meetings and my one-on-ones with my boss have been turning more negative, and it's starting to affect my confidence. So every time I go into these meetings, I feel anxious because I know I'm going to get feedback that's going to be tough to hear. For example, he always says things like, don't tell me what I want to hear, or why are you doing it this way instead of that way, even though the expectations were clearly given earlier in the year. What's frustrating is that expectations seem to change constantly. When I follow them, I get reprimanded for not being more free or creative or not acting like an owner, which is one of our principles. It feels like I'm being told to do one thing, then punished when I follow through. I know I have areas I need to work on, but I feel like I'm stuck in a cycle of trying to meet changing expectations and getting conflicting feedback. My question is this: how do I turn the situation around and use the feedback to grow without letting it demotivate me? Any advice you can give on navigating through this feedback and staying focused on my growth would be incredibly helpful. I really want to make the most of my time here and accomplish as much as I can before deciding what's next. Thank you so much.
Isabel, what the heck, girl?
That voice note made my heart warm. Not
That is
about your
amazing.
situation, but you said that Isabel said she loves per my last email. We love you, Isabel. We love you.
No, this is great. I mean, honestly, this is probably something that most people struggle with. It's like you're giving me feedback. I'm taking it to heart, and then your feedback changes. Like all of a sudden, I'm being reprimanded for doing the thing you asked me to do. That's very, very frustrating and hard to get out of.
Yeah, my initial thoughts immediately went to structuring the one-on-one in a way that maybe will allow you to have the conversations it sounds like you want to have with your manager, but maybe there's just not space or it feels a little awkward. And so I would set up the one-on-ones where you have a consistent schedule document that you go through, and inside of that document, again, if your manager is okay with it, but if they're not, like, you probably should have this conversation. A section where like they can give you feedback, what's working and what's not, but also a section where you can give them feedback on how they're managing you. And again, frame this all in, you want to do the best work, you want to have a great relationship, and a two-way feedback is going to be very helpful, because in the best view of this, your manager just doesn't understand what they're doing. They're not connecting the dots that, yeah, they're telling you to do this, you do it, but then they have a complaint. So give them the opportunity to hear that feedback from you and see if their behavior changes. I'm hopeful that it will. And if you have this structure, you can kind of keep coming back to it if you need to. And if you provide them feedback and the behavior doesn't change, then you're in a tougher spot. But that's where you have to decide, is it worth to stay at the company or should I be looking for other opportunities?
Yeah, and I think one other unexpected or unintended benefit of having a running doc like this is that you have written proof of feedback that you've received in the past. So if, your boss is saying you need to follow these instructions to a T and you were too, out of the box and didn't follow these instructions, and then next week their written advice is you need to be more creative and free and think like an owner, you can point back to their previous statement and say, okay, so can you tell me exactly what it is about this activity that you think I should have done differently and how I could have changed it this time to, agree with your feedback. I also think that hopefully that'll allow them to kind of understand that they're giving inconsistent feedback. But something else that you could do is in those one-on-ones, ask for the positive examples, even when you're receiving negative feedback. So if, your boss is saying you're not thinking like an owner or you're not being creative enough, if you say to them, listen, this is the process that I've been told to follow. How would you be creative about this so that I can learn from your example? This kind of gives them a little bit of an ego boost, like, wow, you really care what I think. And also it kind of subtly points out maybe a little bit of the hypocrisy of the feedback, and they might walk that back eventually.
The last thing I'll say is I heard this quote from a former boss of mine that I thought was really powerful, and it was, do you want to be right or do you want to be successful? And so I would ask yourself the question, like, is this damaging the relationship? Are you still getting to a good final product, even if the feedback feels a little inconsistent? If you're still getting to a good spot and you have a great relationship with your manager, and the feedback's a little inconsistent, like maybe it's just not worth worrying about that because like things are still looking good. And I've worked with people who they give you some feedback and you go and then they give you some more feedback that feels a little hypocritical, but like they're kind of trying to calibrate where they're driving this project to. And I don't think it's the end of the world. So if you're getting to a good spot, you have a good relationship with your manager, maybe this is like something that you have a casual conversation about, but you don't get too worked up about. If it is like they're not happy with the work and it's damaging the relationship, then you certainly need to have a difficult conversation.
Yeah, I agree. Especially if this is giving you, anxiety or you're feeling anxious about every single meeting. That's also not good.
That's a good point. That's what she brought up. So it sounds like it is damaging the relationship.
It's not putting you in a good headspace to get work done and to maintain that relationship with your manager. Builds up resentment. It's a really, really hard situation that you're in, and I really feel for you, Isabel. So let us know how it's going. Any decisions that you make, because I'm dying to hear our updates here.
Yeah, you're team PMLE now.
Yeah. And we'll be right back after this. Okay, back to the show.
Let's go to question number 3.
All right. I have a friend who's struggling with something I think a lot of early career professionals face. Understanding what jobs like marketing, sales, strategy, ops, growth, partnerships, etc. actually look like day to day when you've never worked in them. For example, she majored in business at Northeastern, great school, but said, why don't I know the difference between what I'd be doing in an entry-level marketing role versus sales? Why didn't they teach us this in college? From there, she asked things like, where do you even start when you could go in multiple directions? What job titles should you actually be searching for? How do you choose between these paths without first-hand experience to guide you? What skills and personality traits thrive in each, and how much do these roles change depending on industry or company structure? Startup versus corporate, consultancy versus agency versus in-house. And this is from Kate. Damn.
That's a good question.
That's a deep question, and I think we could start an entire other separate podcast to answer all of these questions.
So we're going to do just that announcing. No, I'm kidding. I'll take a crack at it. I want to hit on the part where they're like, oh, they didn't teach me this in college. I think that is a feeling that pretty much every single early career professional has, myself included, when they start their career. When I tell you, I had no idea how businesses worked. I was doing AmeriCorps. I was a philosophy, political science major. If you told me what corporate finance is, I think I would have an aneurysm. I had no idea. So that is an okay place to be. This is what I did to help me understand that when I first came to a real, quote unquote, real job at Morning Brew. The first thing I would do is go look at an org chart. At Morning Brew, you can go into our system, Bamboo. You can actually download the entire org chart that will lay out who works in sales, who works in marketing, who works in finance, and look at that. And then I would just pick a person from each business unit and message them and say, hey, I work in X and I'm really curious about how the marketing org functions and the work that you're doing specifically, mainly because like I'm new here and I want to better understand how all these pieces fit together. Could we have a coffee for 30 minutes and you walk me through that? One, you're going to learn a lot about how these functions actually work from the people in them. Two, you're going to develop super strong relationships across the organization that is going to help you do your job better. And three, if you do leave, you're going to have this new kind of scaffolding and this new knowledge where you understand how marketing and sales and finance all relate to each other. And that's going to allow you to be even better in any new roles going forward. So I think starting there is a really, really good spot and is going to get you 90% of where you want to go.
Yeah, and I think also like the reality is you're never gonna know everything, right? Like the how does sales look at, a consulting firm versus an agency versus in-house versus media versus finance, like every single one of those categories, that industry or role is going to look different. So there's maybe something comforting about knowing that you're never going to have all the answers. You're never going to know exactly what every single thing looks like before you make your first job decision. Mm-hmm. What I think makes sense to me, at least if I was starting over, is identifying one of those, whether it's industry or role or, function, whatever, and try to go across, like understand what that landscape looks like as you're looking for a job. So for example, if you're looking at marketing and you really want a wide breadth of experience, you aren't like, I really want to market for a healthcare company. Maybe that's something that, okay, where can I get the widest number of data points? That's probably at an agency that's working with a lot of different marketing clients. So that's what then I would try to do for my first internship or my first job. If you're like, I know I want to be in oil and gas, which like, great for you. Then, it doesn't matter what industry or what role you're in necessarily because the industry is what matters to you. So then you just look at the job pages at like Exxon or something. And so I think if you hone in on the one thing that is important to you, all the other things you'll figure out, but you can't just like know exactly of all those three stratifications, like which dot is perfect for you. You have to just choose one axis. Yeah,
and you mentioned dots, and I think a general principle that you should follow for career is early in your career, you want to collect as many dots as possible. And, you're asking all these big questions like, yeah, you just need to go out and experience things. And then as your career progresses, you tend to focus in narrow and you start connecting the dots and bring a really unique value proposition to whatever your final employer might be. So Kate S.'s friend, I hope that advice was helpful. Let us know how your dot collecting goes. And let's move on to question number 4.
Let's do it.
Hey, y'all. Love the podcast. I have a question. I want to know where you both stand on the issue of whether to decorate your office space, cubicle space, whatever, or not. I know this seems like a frivolous question, but I don't know how whether or not decorating affects someone's career. Do people really care, or is it just not as important? I'd like to know what you think. Thanks. Keep up the good work.
Birdie, I love you, Birdie.
I'm obsessed.
I thought she was going to be like, hot button political issue. What's your take? I was like, uh-oh. What's going on here?
No, this is a great question. And I actually think I have...
What's your desk looking like?
My desk? Well, maybe we'll take a picture of it and show it.
It's pretty messy.
It's pretty messy. In fact, I was just thinking about it this morning. I was like, I think I need to clean my desk. I have a lot of decorations on my desk, and I think it's great.
One person's trash is another person's decoration.
I collect. We have funny people here at Morning Brew, and because I work in part on merch, I get to create some funny merch. So I have that kind of all over the place. Stickers, like postcards, flyers, and I love it. I also am on the floor with all of the like creatives. And so first I would like to note that my desk is not the messiest on our floor by far.
That's true.
And that mine is not the most decorated. So I think my advice for you, Birdie, is to read the vibes of your office. If there is not a single family photo as far as the eye can see, maybe you can put a little thing up, but for the most part, I wouldn't go crazy. I wouldn't, start adding wallpaper to the cubicle. But you can always, do it, whatever. I don't think it's that serious. But if everyone is decorating, then yeah, I think you can and should. But it is interesting. It's actually a bigger question than like one would think.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, how much of your personality do you bring into the everyday environment in your office?
Yeah, well, if we can't, again, that would be a whole separate podcast if we start talking about personality, different personalities at work. It is funny at Morning Brew, there's 2 floors, the 3rd floor and the 4th floor. The 3rd floor tends to be the creatives, the content creators, the writers. There's a putting green in between 2 of the desks.
Yeah.
Like it's very fun. And then upstairs is like the biz ops people and sales people. And the desks are fun, but it's a little more buttoned up. So it is.
There's some pictures.
It's pretty fun, like walking between the floors. Look, Birdie, I would say never have I ever been in a meeting discussing like a promotion or should we hire this person, and someone's been like, well, I think it's important what their desk looks like. So I don't think it matters that much. Maybe there's some industries where it matters more. In my experience, it's never mattered. So my advice would be do what makes you comfortable and is going to put you in the best position to do the best work. And that's ultimately what's going to be judged. If you are coming into the office often, it's very helpful, I think, to decorate and be comfortable and have all the things you need. So that would be my advice. But I don't think it's career critical to get this question right. Do what makes you comfortable.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'll say about this is something that we've mentioned quite a few times, which is you never want to be the main character.
That is a great point.
So if you, I think, are allowed to express your personality, your, decorational skills as much as you want. But just remember that if you do something that is maybe way outside of the norm in your office, that you might be the main character for a day.
Yeah.
And if you're okay with that, then that's great.
And don't put like a 6-foot naked statue of David. Like
okay. Or depends on your vibes. I don't know. Maybe you're in an art museum.
Yeah, maybe you're in an art museum.
You know what I would love to see is I would love to see somebody who puts up that 12-foot skeleton from Home Depot next to their office.
That would fly in Morning Brew.
I think actually it would.
3rd floor, that would fly.
I don't think our ceilings are 12 feet high, but that would be pretty fun.
We got to bring this in. Birdie, I have one request for you. If you do decide to decorate your desk, take a picture, send us in. We want to let the audience know where you ended up. But thank you for the really fun question. Let's move on to the next one.
Let's do it.
I wanted to see if you could make an episode dedicated to navigating an entry-level job and how to motivate yourself during the quote-unquote fluff. I don't have a lot of work, and when I do get work, it feels unimportant, though I know it is a stepping stone. That's from Tanya. And that's a feeling we can all relate to.
Yes.
Kayla, I feel like maybe you had this experience in banking.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, what I was doing was high stress and low impact because it was a lot of stuff that like literally it was like the most urgent thing I was doing. I needed within 20 minutes to have written like let's say 150 numbers from a PDF, look at them and type them into an Excel spreadsheet. It was very urgent and it was important, but in terms of like thinking, quality of work, like it wasn't super, I didn't feel like it moved. I was like, there's gotta be a way to automate this. And now I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
This is challenging because I think that one of the most important parts of the first, let's say, 12 months of your career is figuring out how to operate in an office. It's not necessarily the fact that you're moving the needle with your work. And so I think that when you have free time in your job, it is very tempting to feel demotivated, especially like I just started my career. I want to be doing stuff, and that like lean into that, but maybe use that time to network both internally and externally in the company to understand what your coworkers are working on. Ask for, if you want to ask for tasks from them, but figuring out exactly how the inner workings of the company are like going, I think is the most valuable way to spend that like downtime.
And Tanya, I will give you a plug of another episode, but I promise it'll be worth your time. We interviewed Dr. Lori Santos, who is a happiness expert. She runs a course at Yale that's been the most popular course at Yale, which is basically how to be happy in life. And she said something in that interview that stuck with me, and I think it's a perfect response to your dilemma, which is about connecting your work to a broader mission. And they've done a ton of research on this. I think Adam Grant has done some work in this space as well, where basically like take someone like a janitor, where the work itself might not seem entirely thrilling, but they prepped a janitor to think about, okay, how does your work enable maybe other people to do the great work or enable the company to fulfill its mission? And then they evaluated happiness in the control group and the test group. And they found that when people were able to connect their work to a broader mission, even if it only enabled other people to, go do that mission, they felt great. And I think it's very similar to team sports. Like if you're the punter on a football team, you might be in for one or two plays. It might be tough to say like, oh man, like I just kind of do the fluff work. I don't really get to participate that much. But if you're like, no, like my work does matter and it enables my team to go and win a game, I think that connection to a broader purpose is going to make you a lot happier. So I hope you work for a company whose mission you believe in, and then just work on connecting the work you're doing to that mission. You'll be a lot happier. If you're stuck doing fluff work and you don't give a shit about the mission for the company you're working with, I give up. That is a tough situation. And you could take some of Kayla's advice. You could go maybe try to find a different job, but I hope that's helpful.
I think that's great.
Wonderful. Let's do the final question.
Let's do it. My company was acquired last year, and my boss and I are struggling to keep our heads above water. What adds to our stress is the fact that my boss is a yes man, and I am the only person on her team. I think she's afraid to push back against demands because she fears she could lose her job, and she has followed this pattern since I started a few years ago. Her lack of a backbone causes her to miss out on events in her personal life to a concerning degree. Priorities change not just every week, but every few hours, and I worry I am not able to focus on projects that would help me grow in my career because I am wearing so many hats. I am deeply concerned she is someone who would throw me under the bus if I made a mistake because I am unable to keep up with shifting priorities. The stress is affecting my physical health as well. I would love your advice, Ben. Ben, this is a tough one.
Ben, come in the living room. Sit down with mom and dad. I think we have to have a difficult conversation with you. Anytime I see it's affecting my physical health,
Yeah.
it requires an intervention.
Yeah.
Like your work should not be making you physically ill. It sounds like this relationship is not good at the office. And I would try to have, if you've not had it in the past, one difficult conversation about this and see if it progresses. And if not, unfortunately, the future of your career is somewhat guided by your manager, what they do, their behaviors, their perception in the company. And if you have a difficult conversation, that doesn't change. You're not enjoying the relationship. It is hurting your career and it's making you physically ill. You got to get out of there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think the reality is like it is very possible that your boss is concerned for a reason, right? That she is freaked out. She's unable to push back because she knows that maybe her boss does not take well to criticism or does not take well to push back. However, it is her job as a manager to kind of protect you from that as much as possible. And we've definitely been in situations, well, I've definitely been in a situation where I felt like I was getting a lot of varied and inconsistent prioritization. And it was very hard for me to protect my direct report on that front, but also necessary for the health of our relationship and our work. And so I think that you are probably one difficult conversation away from getting some clarity there. Even if she continues to have that behavior, it does feel like you would need to at least bring up, if you haven't, the fact that it's not going well for you. And it sounds like she's very concerned about her career. So she would be concerned about yours too. And I think highlighting this is a problem for me would make her maybe see the light a little bit.
Yeah, I think go through all of that and just it sounds like get final clarity on the situation. I think the last resort, nuclear option, you take the case and you press the red button, is you go above your manager.
Yeah.
But that is like do not do this unless you've done your due diligence and you're like putting your career at risk, but you've come to the conclusion you have to. And like you could have a conversation with her boss and say like, hey, I've documented all this stuff. Priorities are changing. Like I can't work with her and it's kind of me or her. If you're willing to go there, like, and you really love the company and you want to stay there, it's worth shooting that final shot.
Yeah.
Just know like that's your final shot, Ben.
And that could backfire.
That could backfire big. So make sure you are comfortable hitting the nuclear button.
Especially because you've mentioned that she's missed out on important personal events because of work. Like she probably, that shows where her priorities are. So, do a skip level.
Yeah.
You must.
Yeah. Ben, right back.
Please, we
to
need
us.
an update. Yeah.
If you need to come in here with the studio, we will welcome you in the studio. I wish you well. Keep us posted. And thank you all for the lovely questions. This was super fun.
This was really fun. I enjoyed that a lot.
The voice notes kind of made my heart sing.
I can't believe we haven't heard those yet. That was amazing.
That was very cute. I hope everyone resolves their situation perfectly with our advice. Obviously, it's going to happen.
And if you have additional questions, please email us or send us a voice note at permylastemail@morningbrew.com. As you've seen, we love receiving these. We respond to every listener email, and you might hear your question on a later date.
Pretty exciting. Thanks for writing in. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Should we roll the credits?
Let's do it. Our producer is Michaela Heck.
Our technical director is Uchenna Ogu.
Our sound engineer is Brittany DeTaco.
And our president is Devin Emery.
This show is a production of Morning Brew.
Thank you so much for listening.
Per my last email at morningbrew.com. Send us in.